Dear students, welcome back to the online English class grade 9. Now we are discussing the lesson in the kingdom of fools. Let's recap the important points. One day in the kingdom of fools, a thief broke into a merchant's house. When he was about to leave, the wall fell on the thief and he died on spot. The thief's brother complained against the merchant, and the merchant said it was not his fault. He didn't construct a wall. It was the fault of the bricklayer who constructed the wall. The king summoned the bricklayer to the court. Later, the bricklayer said that it was not his fault. It was the fault of the dancing girl. Now, what the dancing girl says, let's see. Listen carefully. She thought for a minute and said, "My lord, wait. I know why I was walking up and down that street. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. He was a lazy scoundrel." The dancing girl blamed another person. She said, "My dear king, wait. Do you know why I was walking up and down that street? There is a reason. I had given some gold to a goldsmith to make jewelry for me. I had given some gold to the goldsmith to make some jewelry for me." She said that she had given some gold to a goldsmith to make some jewelry for her. And he was a lazy scoundrel. He was a dishonest person. He was not a good person. I gave some gold to that goldsmith to make some jewelry for me. And he was a dishonest person. What he did, the goldsmith, he made so many excuses. Said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. He made me walk up and down to his house a dozen times. That was when this bricklayer saw me. It is not my fault, my lord. It is the damned goldsmith's fault. The goldsmith was a dishonest person. He was making excuses. He was making excuses for not making her ornaments in time. He made so many excuses. Said he would give it now and he would give it then, and so on all day. And he made her walk up and down his house a dozen times. He kept on asking her to come after some time. Due to this, she had to go to his house at least a dozen times. That was then this bricklayer saw me. He was making a wall. He stared at me. It is not my fault. My lord, it is not my fault. It is the damned goldsmith's fault. So the dancing girl said that it was the fault of the goldsmith. Because of the goldsmith, she was roaming in the street again and again. Poor thing. She is absolutely right, the king said. Thought the king, weighing the evidence. We have got the real culprit at last. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once. Now the king says that the poor dancing girl was totally right. She is absolutely right. Poor thing. It is not her fault. It is the fault of the goldsmith. The king considered the evidence given by the poor lady, and he concluded that she was absolutely right. He thought a lot and finally said that now they knew who the real culprit was. We have got the real culprit at last. At last we got the real culprit. It is his fault, the goldsmith. Get the goldsmith wherever he is hiding at once, he ordered. The king ordered to bring the goldsmith. And he made it clear that the dancing girl was innocent. It was not her fault, it was the fault of the goldsmith. The king's bailiffs searched for the goldsmith, who was hiding in a corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. The king's bailiffs means officers in the court. The officers in the court went in search of the goldsmith, and the goldsmith was hiding in a corner of his shop. The king's bailiffs searched for the goldsmith, who was hiding in a corner of his shop. The goldsmith was hiding in a corner of his shop. When he heard the accusation against him, he had his own story to tell. The goldsmith was hiding inside his shop. When he was brought in front of the king, he told his side of the story. When the goldsmith heard the accusation, he had his own story to tell. He said, "My lord, I am a poor goldsmith. It is true I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders." The goldsmith said, "My lord, it is true." He said that the dancing girl was right. "It is true that I made this dancer come many times to my door. I gave her excuses." He made many excuses and made her visit his shop again and again. He said, "It is true. I made many excuses and made the dancing girl visit my shop again and again. But it was not my fault. But it was not his fault. I gave her excuses because I couldn't finish making her jewelry before I finished the rich merchant's orders." He had an order from a rich merchant, and he could not finish making the dancing girl's jewelry before he finished the rich merchant's order. So he couldn't finish making the dancing girl's jewelry. The dancing girl's work was getting delayed because he had an order from a rich merchant. They had a wedding coming and they wouldn't wait. You know how impatient rich men are. A rich merchant had given an order to him. They had a wedding ceremony, so he was making jewelry for the rich merchant. The dancing girl's work was delayed. The rich merchant had a wedding. They were not ready to wait. And the goldsmith added, "My lord, you know how impatient rich men are. Rich men are always impatient. They could not wait. My lord, you already know it. This rich merchant was also not ready to wait. You know it, how impatient rich men are." Then the king asked, "Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry, made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him?" The king is explaining the events again. He asked the goldsmith, "Who is the rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's, the dancing girl's, jewelry? Who is this rich merchant who kept you from finishing this poor woman's jewelry and made her walk up and down, which distracted this bricklayer, which made a mess of his wall, which has now fallen on an innocent man and killed him? Can you name him?" The king asked, "Who is that man?" "The man who didn't allow you to finish your work. The man who didn't allow to finish the poor woman's jewelry, and that made the dancing girl walk up and down, and it distracted this bricklayer, and he made a weak wall. The wall now got collapsed, and an innocent man has been killed. Can you name him?" The king asked the goldsmith to name the rich merchant. "Can you name him? Can you say his name?" The goldsmith named the merchant. The goldsmith said the name of the merchant, and he was none other than the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Goldsmith named the merchant, and the merchant was the father of the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. And that merchant was the father of the merchant whose wall had fallen earlier. It was his father. In the beginning of the story, you have seen a merchant whose house was robbed and the wall was collapsed. And this merchant who gave order to make jewelry to the goldsmith was his father. That merchant was the father of the original owner of the house whose wall had fallen. Now it forms a circle. A merchant's house was collapsed. The thief was killed. Bricklayer was called. Bricklayer said it is not his fault. It was the fault of the dancing girl. Dancing girl said it was the fault of the goldsmith. He made delay in making the jewelry because of another rich merchant, and this rich merchant was the father of the first merchant. Now justice had come full circle, thought the king, back to the merchant. Now it forms a full circle, thought the king. The merchant was called to the court. Dear students, today we are concluding here. I hope you enjoyed today's session. Complete the given homework and send it in the group. If you have any doubt, you can clarify it with me. Thank you for listening. Thank you very much.